Alright, so we're going to get started, and as we get started, that's alright. So we're going to get started. Welcome to RC4. Started this a couple years ago, and now we're bringing it back. So this is today's agenda. We're going to start with like a quick history of Phil for those who don't know Phil. And then we're going to start with Nick Piazza and Joel Martell's talk, and then we're going to move down the list from there. During the presentation, we're refraining from asking questions because it's kind of stressing off here because you're not talking, so if you hold your questions till the end, that will be all questions we ask again. So, like I said, it's pretty stressful to your first time. So after the presentation on today's agenda, once we slide back, we're going to have the agenda of all the talk for today. We're going to have a section for Google Forms. If you guys can go there after each presentation, click on the link for it and fill it out. That Google Forms. So that Google Form is going to be using the Oreo method. So what's the Oreo method? The Oreo method is one good thing that the presenter did, one thing that they can improve on, and another good thing that they did. So it's really good feedback. It makes you feel really good, and it feels super awesome when you get that feedback about your presentation. So and it's really good to hear that when it comes from your peers as well. And we're going to collect the emails we made right from the submission, so it's 100% anonymous. So here's an example of that form. So one thing you like about the presenter is that they did well, one thing that they could do better, and again, one thing that they did well. So after RC4, this week we'll be posting the presentations on our website, RC3's, and also we have an RC4 feedback form which you guys can fill it out and let us know how to make this better for you guys. Alright, so we're going to talk about the history of 4 and some RC4 days. So it's the spring of RC 2015. It's 3 a.m. RC3 board is really high. And half of the infrastructure is working for IRSEC, which is our incident response competition in the spring, and we have 4 hours to get it working, or else we may not have competition. So we're all tired, we're all stressed, and so we decided to drink copious amounts of Monster. May or may not have been a good idea. So if you guys remember Sean Connell, he graduated last semester, but if you don't, he was a previous e-board member on RC3. We got loopy Monster High, and we decided to just kind of disappear. And this kind of happens at every RC. It's not really funny, it just kind of happens, and weird things just kind of come from it that make it really fun. So we found a whiteboard, and we found markers, and we thought, well, let's draw art for all our members that are going to be coming today. We'd love to draw art. So we wanted to make it rain shells, because that's what was going to happen that day. We thought it'd be really awesome, and we may have gotten a little out of control with it. So, this is what it started to be. And then as the night progressed, we drew this. For those of you who don't know, this is Phil right here. And so when I ask you who's Phil, this is who Phil is. And no one knows who he is. So this is why I'm doing this presentation, because Phil's my love child. Okay? And I want you guys to know Phil just as much as I do. So all day at IRC, we kept asking people, have you seen Phil? He's a little blue today. And most people thought we were just like the craziest two ever. Like they were just ignoring us. Like, who the hell is Phil? But he was right there on the whiteboard. So we kept replacing people's web servers and stuff with Dr. Phil, actually. And it was a lot of fun. And so Sean and I were the only ones on eBoard that really actually cared about Phil at the end of the day. And if you ask any previous eBoard members, they go, who the hell is Phil? And this hurts my feelings because he's my love child. So we were the special people on eBoard, as you may have been able to pick up so far. So Phil's our love child, as I said, and as president, I made it my goal to make sure that you guys know who Phil is, so that Phil can live on in infancy. So in the fall of 2015, we had a CTF. So Sean and I were given some trust from eBoard to create a challenge. So we created a challenge, which was the Find Phil Missed Challenge 500. It was ridiculously hard and just long, tedious, and ridiculous. Sean curled like half the internet, was watching Netflix, and then threw the actual challenge into a PCAT. So a lot of people were really angry when they got this huge freaking PCAT. We're like, what's all this extra data that I don't know what to do with? Nick was actually in the lab doing this. I freaking hate Sean. I can't find Phil. So there's this long, laborious process to go find fill. So every year now we've started to do this thing called the Fill This Challenge, where we have this long, laborious process to go actually find fill at the end. So as president, again, I get to decide what the goals of RC3 are, and with the help of my VP and my e-board, they've been very graciously helping me with this actual goal to actually help you guys find fill, and so that you guys know, and hopefully he lives on. So, if for those of you who are not here, you will enjoy this video very much of the shenanigans that happen at 3 a.m. at IRSA.
Hello, and welcome to Xanadu. I'm your CEO, Lord Kane. Xanadu is really all about being efficient, innovative, synergistic, and of course, innovative. Here at Xanadu, we do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
We upgraded. What is a match as our scientists and the way that themselves. You can see from this equation here that the key factor in finding that anything exists is, of course, innovation. That's why it's so key to us here at Xanadu. One other area that we're also very interested in is this thing called EPT. I'm not quite sure what it is, but once in a while, this is really important and we should be paying attention to it. Because of this, we have invested heavily in something called EPT, Game Threat Technologies. They are very promising, select in the cloud, accurate, effective, and ubiquitous. They are truly synergistic and innovative. That's what Xanadu is. At Xanadu, we have two main phrases that we try and live by. The first is all progress begins with failure. You see, at Xanadu, sometimes we fail, but when we fail, we innovate, we get right back up, and we succeed. Another one that we live by too is don't let your dreams be dreams. This is in fact a key slogan here at Xanadu, as you may have seen printed on our walls. Don't let your dreams be dreams. What's Xanadu? Oh, another great catchy one. Xanadu, where dreams become reality. Xanadu is the truth here, it is not. We also love Red Bull, as you can tell. Some other really important things here at Xanadu, people love graphs. As you can tell from this one, which tries to relate profit, innovation, and synergy, and it shows the effect of magic on the three. Magic is very important to us here at Xanadu, and it's what really makes us so innovative and allows us to bring the world into the future. Everyone great. All one with Xanadu. Another graph we have here is the importance of innovation, synergy, imagination, and efficiency. As you can tell, efficiency and innovation are very important to Xanadu. That's one quality I hope that you share. However, imagination and synergy are also pretty important. So you should probably have, equal amounts of all of those when we're thinking about this. We also are very fond of quote-unquote buzzwords. We like to call them, what sort of buzzwords? The more motivational words. And kind of like, when you enter a soft tornado, you think about all these buzzwords. So as you're standing there, immersed in the soft tornado, you start to think, fire, silence, red bull. And of course, our favorite one here, IPtables. Yes. We also have this lovely worker here, Phil. You may see him throughout the day, the week, the week or much longer, but who knows? Phil is an excellent worker for us to Xanadu because everything we need and know. He is truly innovative. And of course, one last final thing that you need to know about Xanadu is that Xanadu equals success. Everything we do here at Xanadu is a success. Whether it's because of the method, the pure amount of innovation and efficiency that we use when creating products, the amount of record that we do in a day. But what do you look at? Considering how Red Bull story. Here at Xanadu, we think of that. I hope that this little information tornado occurred in the video has helped you understand more things and what it truly enjoy your stay here in San Diego, and you learn about food and faith. Thank you, and welcome to San Diego.
So those are the shenanigans that usually happen at 3 a.m. and they're never really planned, they just kind of happen. So,
I was never being clear on this. Where did he acquire the shark hat?
I don't know. It's Sean. So we hope that you enjoyed RC3 just as much as Sean and I have on. So, bigger part of this is like, use RC3 in clubs to make your own memories. Have fun, learn new things, learn new security topics, and meet new people. So that's the most important part of all this. Going to RC3 in clubs, you get to meet new people, you get to learn new things and all that. So really enjoy that and have fun with it. So that's the end of my presentation. So your partner's on it. Joel's on his way. Do you know how long he's going to be?
He said he just woke up and it'll be probably like just woke up. Yeah. Nico and Sean said that they're okay to go.
Alright, cool. So we'll have Nico and Sean go next.
Where's the feedback form?
There's no feedback form for me. I don't want to. What?
Why?
Unless you want to give me one, I'll put one up for me.
We use them.
Hi.
So, Mike, who has issues with HDMI, also has
Here's the. How's everyone doing?
Tired.
Good, I guess.
I'm awake all the week.
Maybe a little less since you talk so close to the mic.
Sorry.
As we float. Oh, sorry. Oh my goodness. Look at your that's true. HDMI before hit him. Hit me. See if this works. Sometimes oh my god, it worked. Now I just cannot move it. Or it will.
That's great.
Oh yeah. I always forget to move that. Okay.
Oh, you see.
Just press the.
Did I miss this? Okay. No, I'm pretty good
Feedback forms have been posted for the first 2 presentations.
I had a problem with presenting it. It's not because I'm challenged or square. I'm not challenged, man.
On that podium, like, the audio works when it wants to.
It's really strange. I got the other word. Okay. Hi guys, everybody. Hi. Hi.
Hello.
So our presentation is on, it's called Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole, or as Sean so cleverly said, digging a rabbit out of them. Yeah. Our presentation is on information gathering. Who here can answer? Has an idea or has done this or has had any exposure to this at all? Raise your hands high. Yes? Who do you answer? All right. That's good. So some of you have an idea. For those who don't know, we're just going to kind of go into the mindset that you need to be in when you are gathering information. So, another thing is, this is really tracking off unquestionably creepy from the comfort of your own home. Although some activities you may need to leave your house for.
So yeah, so introduction. I'm Sean. Let's say here.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Sean!
That's our security. I am a senior web admin person, and I lead information gathering, network security, and finance in tech.
I'm Nico. I'm old. I've been here for a long time. So I'm a fourth year in computing technology. I used to be CSEC, but I switched to the SOIS program because Calvin physics. I like information gathering. I really like industrial control systems, and I also like the Internet of Shit, or things, as you guys might know the next. So quick disclaimer, okay, we're not responsible for anything you do today. Don't try this at home. Don't be dumb. Yeah, just don't be them. That's it. Or don't tolerate it. Anyway. And you are what you share, as Charles Leadbeater so eloquently said. Oh, sorry. So what is information gathering anyway? So information gathering is gathering information. I mean, if you go on vocabulary.com, it's the act of collecting information. So it's a pretty self-defining term, but at the same time, every other definition I found kind of uses the word in the definition, which you can't do. So anybody can perform information gathering. I can, you can, the companies you work for, private investigators, if you're officially licensed, governments, so the NSA, CIA, FBI, any other three-letter acronym, they can do information gathering, as well as the rest of the world's intelligence agencies, and anybody that has access to the internet. So you can also have your unstable significant others performing information gathering. They can be checking up on you, making sure that you're not cheating on them, which is, there's probably more problems there if they're checking up on you without actually talking. And advertising posts. They know a lot about you. They know so much about you that they don't know your name, but they know your name. Because they've collected enough information that they built a profile, and it's like metadata. When you have enough metadata, you know the data.
Yeah, so why is information gathering important? Well, information is just like any other commodity. It can be traded for something of equal value. Having some current information is worth something to someone. Having information gives you leverage, and information can give you insight into a person's life, like what dog do they have, or what they like to do on weekends. So some information is voluntary, where people post on social media, and some is public record. So like the person who court records and criminal felony charges. Yeah, but some of this information is really easily publicly found. Some of them need some extra legal tactics.
So some steps to success that we've defined are, you need to first start with your motivations. So why? Why do you want to go after this person or this company or this particular organization, whatever it might be? Why are you motivated to gather information on them? I mean, if you're not motivated, unlike some people here, you're probably not going to get very far. You got to be interested in what you're looking up. So a lot of companies will do this because they can build profiles of potential candidates. I'm guessing that you've heard throughout time now that companies will check your public Facebook page to make sure you're not some like sociopath and that you're going to be a good culture fit. Background checking is often done, but usually this is through a paid service. You can get somebody's criminal record, and the paid part of it is the fact that they've gone and collected the information. It's not so much that you can't do it on your own. You can keep tabs on somebody, so you can monitor their whereabouts on and offline through these methods. So by using services like Foursquare, somebody's posting that they're out at this super cool restaurant. Sean showed me a website called Please Rob Me, which just scraped Foursquare data and showed you when people weren't home. You can do it for the walls if that's what you're really interested in. Money is usually a pretty big motivator, believe it or not. You can build a pretty in-depth profile and then sell it. So gathering up personally identifiable information, location, interest, everything, you can be them. That's what you're so inclined to do. And corporate espionage, also known as industrial espionage, is usually the act of stealing another company's trade secrets or their intellectual property to greater advantage in the market. You can also steal customers this way by having their secret sauce. And maybe you can get credentials from like Facebook or something like that.
Those are just some.
Yeah. So, how do you go to page? Technical difference.
So now that you know your motivation to figure out your end goal, you don't want to do so much information gathering because you can go really deep down the rabbit hole and waste your time. Like, why would you want to know someone's entire life story if you just want their password? And so now that you just you have to figure out your goal, so you don't stray away from it. Yeah. So yeah, persistence within a person's life can give the upper hand if selects me. Keeping a record of someone's personal whereabouts defines where they are and if they're away. Yeah, and you just want to know when to stop depending on your goal. So for example, fact checking. So you don't you're just trying to make sure someone's telling the truth. You don't want to go past that because then it's just a waste of time. Yeah.
Alright, next, building a profile. It's broken down, we broke down into two categories, data accumulation and data organization. So data accumulation just is the fact that you are acquiring data over time and organizing it is dividing it into actual intelligence. You want to keep this focus from the scope, kind of like we talked about in the last slide, because if you stray too far from your scope, then you're going to lose track of what your end goal is. And just remember that people are not just words on a page. This identifying information is their life. It's just like yours and just like mine. So keep in mind that you hold a power that not many people actually have.
So the next step is data accumulation. That means using Google, that means using social media. So for example, when you use Google, you can be power searching. You can be looking at specific things like only at social media sites. And when you check out those social media sites, look at what the person is willing to give out about themselves. Do they post everything about their life, or are they a particularly private person? Another thing that you will eventually find if you're persistent enough is personal identifiable information. That means social security numbers, credit card numbers, home addresses, IP addresses, driver's license number. And there's also port scanning, so I'm sure many of you have heard of that, and you can see if they're using Telnet with their Google Labs.
So some data organization. To make this presentation, we used what's called a mind map. If anybody's familiar with Chicago, it's like you start with your main point, and you've got all these branching arms that come off of it, and so on. And so you can put your information into there to help organize, like, if you're looking for their personally identifiable information, you can have one branch for that. You can have a branch for interests. You can have a branch for their location, like where their favorite place is, and so on. So there's a lot that you can go into with that. Another thing you can use is spreadsheets. Really good at Excel. I'm terrible at Excel. I hate it. So if you're really good at Excel, go ahead and use that. It's very similar to also using like a database. Another really useful tool, and honestly, I feel like this presentation is just Google and Altigo. If you've never used it before, boot up Kali in the lab one day, open up Altigo, play around with it. The community edition is free, and it's super useful for building, for accumulating and also organizing data. It's kind of like an all-in-one suite. So just keep in mind that not all information is useful, that it must be within your scope for it to be useful to you. And here's just a visual representation for people that are more visual learners. Your operational environment is your scope, so that is what you're focusing on. You pass it through your first filter, which is your collection filter, so that's you actively going out in your scope and collecting data, which then it becomes data. The data is just a gathering of information. There's no sorting of it. You just have this raw data that needs to be processed. And the next is processing where it becomes information, and information is organized data. So once your data has been organized, it becomes searchable as information, and then from there you can actually mine out intelligence, and intelligence is the actual like PII or the location, or maybe they have like a dating profile or something like that, and you're tying all these services together, including their usernames that they may reuse, and if you end up finding a password on that or something, that's your intelligence.
So when you're looking for the information, here's some questions to ask. What do they care about? Who do they care about? Do they have a spouse? Do they have children? What do they value? What do they like? Who are they voting for? Are they a Trump supporter? Are they a Hillary supporter? Are they supporting Jill Stein? And these values can actually give you insight to the stimuli. So, for example, someone lobbying for, or someone trying to raise tax rates, or someone trying to pass gun laws. These are all important, I guess, triggers for these people. So you have to remember that your targets are people, and they can be affected by the environment they're in. But yeah, so identifying what they like and what they don't like, that builds a better profile. That's more than just words on a page, that's more than just numbers. So figure out where their interests lie. Are they interested in public service and community work, or do they have 47 new Lamborghinis in their garage and make YouTube videos about how much knowledge they have and
So this is particularly useful for when you are going to socially engineer them, because you can play to their weakness. And if their weakness is that they want fame and fortune, and play towards that card, versus somebody who wants to do public service, where you can target them with like a fake charity. So applying intelligence. So now that you've finally gathered your data, refined it into information, how are you going to use this newfound intelligence?
So what's your angle? Do you want to impersonate someone? Do you want to befriend them and continue a long-term relationship? Or possibly figure out all their likes and then somehow social engineer them into marrying you? There's a really interesting 4chan post about that. Do you want to utilize their position as a stepping stone? Are they just a lower-level employee in the mailroom that you want, that somehow have access to a certain credential that you're just trying to move up in the ladder? Do you want to destroy their life? Did this person wrong you in some way and you just want to make them go broke and homeless? Are you blackmailing them with money or other services? Or are you just like an HR person trying to do a background check? So yeah, there's a lot of money in personal data, and I mean, you amass a bunch of credentials that goes for a certain amount on various websites.
The other thing is data. This data is replicable. You can sell it to as many people as you want. So there's no limit. That's the difference between a commodity like this and a commodity like bread. If you're a baker or something like that, you have a finite number of bread, but you can make an infinite number of copies. It's just until their account gets closed. So spearfishing. Who here is familiar with spearfishing? That's good. All right. So spearfishing is, for those that might not know, it is a targeted attack. You are specifically fishing a particular person in either an organization, at home, whatever. You are sending emails, you are sending them letters that look like they're from legitimate sources that they belong to. So maybe if you have like an email from an internal email from a company, you just use their like format and send a link to somebody higher up. If any of you have gotten like phishing emails with an RIT, you've probably seen that they try and mirror what our emails look like, but they don't really have a very good idea because they've never gotten them. So just know your target. If you need access, fish them, fish it out. It's a lot easier to ask for credentials than it is to try and crack a hash or to do something along those lines.
Yeah, so some tools for success. So there are a lot of free tools online. Google is obviously one of them. It's the most powerful search engine. And there's the Internet Archive. The Wayback Machine is really cool. You get to basically post a link and show you all the times there's been a snapshot taken of the site. So you can see like Airbnb when it just started, and it's not as pretty as it is now. And there's social media. What is a privacy filter like? And like, yeah, and are they eating out tonight? Are they staying in? You can see that in Foursquare. You can see what they're doing because they tweet about it on Twitter. But some systems, some like software tools, there's NMAP, there's the social engineering toolkit, and there's Maltigo. And NMAP is really cool. You get to do vulnerability scans. You get to basically report knocking up and all that stuff. The SE toolkit is the suite of tools built by Dave Kennedy, the founder of TrustedSec, which helps you get information out of people. You can do SMS spoofing, you can do email spoofing, just a bunch of really cool tools. And then there's Maltigo, as Nico mentioned before. It's a way to basically accumulate data and organize it by mapping out real life relationships.
And so, public resources. In addition to the free resources that are out there and searching Google, I mean, there's a ton of websites that do data replication that I didn't even really know about until about a year ago. You guys heard of Twincy before? They kind of copy your Twitter profile and just like post it on their site. There's a bunch of Steam aggregators that do that too for like video games. Public resources though, if anybody has taken the time to look at their county's court records, you'd be surprised to find how much information is just kind of open. Because it is technically considered a public record. Same thing with like voter registration information. That could even go so far as to include what party affiliation you're with. Some does, some doesn't. Depends on where you are. Some requires more information than just a last name. Like, for example, I looked it up last night for myself. In Ohio, I just need my last name. But here in New York, you need their name, date of birth, and like zip code or something like that. So you need more information. So you need to sort of dig before you can really search what some of these party affiliations is. Again, court records, anything criminal, even like track charges. I got taken for driving on Close Road 2 years ago, and they listed my driver's license number, and it's publicly available. I use the driver's license number to verify my voter registration and where to send my absentee ballot. So again, impersonating people, you can just do that by gathering information from the county. Another thing is white pages. If any of you remember getting those like big white pages books, yellow pages books, they stopped sending you, or maybe they still send you for some reason. That data is all online. It's publicly available. You can request it to be taken down, but by default, it's still up. So just be aware that there's a lot of information about you that you, regardless if you put it up there, it's still there. And then also geographic information systems, or GIS data. This is information about real estate and real properties. This is a great, the reason this is public is it gives you an idea of the valuation of the land, how much taxes you would pay for this particular lot. It gives you statistics that are of that particular area, how it's doing, it's going up and down. This is Zillow, they just scrape these systems, and if this wasn't available, their business wouldn't be here today. So for example, if you're looking to buy a house, you want to make sure that you can afford it, you gotta look at how much taxes are in that area. So you can take a look at several houses, but with these, what this information includes is your full name, your address, how much you're paying in taxes, and how much it's increased over time. So there's a number of ways you can get somebody's name, physical address, without it being just on their public Facebook profile. There's things that they may not even know exist.
So some of the more paywall tools are things like Pitbull, Spokio. So InfoPay, okay, yeah, so when you use enough of these like paywall sites, you can actually build these profile information. So as I said before, selling data is motivation, and it is a motivation for these sites. And so sites like Pitbull, Spokio, Instant Checkmate, PQ, and just like a ton more. But just be aware that some of these can actually really
noticed when I was looking at all these different sites is that they all seem to aggregate the same information, and they all seem to share roughly the same information. Some share more than others. It's just a matter of finding the sites. These are just like 5 sites that there's thousands of them, but they all seem to have the same info. And I look a little bit harder, and one company that I keep seeing is called InfoPay. They are like a data aggregator. They're considered a data broker, and they might actually own all of these companies, and just they have different like masks over there. All right, so now we're going to talk about automation because I know you guys don't want manually search to this. So automation is key if you're going to be searching for people. Utilizing pastebin and ghostbin for whatever being able to scrape that per query that you set up is very important because that's where a lot of credentials are dumped, or maybe you go on Tor and find some Tor site. You do the same thing. Start scraping these anonymous posting boards for engineered password matches. It so happens to match maybe with the person you're looking for. That's great. Take a copy of it, put it into your database of information about this person, and good to go. If you guys have never used Google Alerts before, this is an incredibly powerful and free tool that you can use with Google account. Even when you open it up, like the first 2 options are searching yourself. So it'll set up these Google Alerts about you, so you know what's being posted, about your name, about your email, whatever else you want. You can set Google Alerts for something you need to have a blog. You just want to be alerted every time you post something new without having to go back and check. This can also be compounded to an RSS. A lot of this can be compounded to an RSS feed. So you can have an RSS feed of somebody's entire life. Just lets you know when it's updated. This is about keeping persistence in somebody's life, so you know what they're doing at all times. Kind of stalkerish with it. Notilio, again, like, that's super awesome tool. I can't stress this enough. I didn't put it in here, but I found this really nice, like, Notilio one-on-one video. So, if anybody wants to take a look at the resources, highly recommend watching it. It's about 8 minutes long. It gives you kind of how to use it if you've never used it before. Workflow automation in Google Alerts is nice, except it doesn't go beyond alerting you. Aside from that, there's not much else it does, which is why programs like Zapier, Supervise, and Feeds API, they are automation. Super full extent. So the example that Zapier gave was if you get an email, then send that to Dropbox and alert you in Slack, you now have a new file in your Dropbox. So imagine setting this up with Google. So you have a new Google alert. All right, parse that information, add it to my database about this person. And then alert me when it comes in so I can verify that the information is correct. So you don't have to do any work, you just let these like type applications do it. Has anybody used Pipes before they shut down? Pipes? No? Alright, they shut down recently. But pretty much that's what it was. You could build your own spiders, like point and click spider loop. And so that's what I did. Superpipes is a copy of that, just using Superfeeder.
So, skills for success, as the great Colin Dynamite once said, goes really along with really great skills, like management skills, and register skills. So lateral thinking, that's a really important soft skill that just comes with practice. It's this term coined in 1967 by this guy called Edward Bono. I don't actually know who he is, but yeah, it's don't confuse it with lateral movement. I know a lot of people who are familiar with pen testing know that term. But lateral thinking is solving your problems in this creative and direct approach. You use reasoning that isn't this linear step-by-step approach. For example, if you want a job, instead of applying to a site, maybe sneak in by dressing as a pizza guy and delivering your resume. Like, if you can't exclude one of the RE members, like Ben Bornholm, ask his roommate to do it for you. Yeah, so like fishing the password is already this formal lateral thinking where instead of just ask someone.
And object identification photos. This is absolutely key for going after social media. They post a lot of honestly says it all. It shows what's important to them, shows what they like. If they're taking a lot of selfies, they have this, they might have this elevated self-image. They might think that they might have a pretty inflated ego. Or are they sharing a lot of things about work culture, something like that? There's, like, being able to identify the bits and pieces in the back photos will give you way more information than what the subject is. So be looking for things like storefronts of non-chain restaurants. I mean, if they're standing in front of like McDonald's, of course it's going to be pretty difficult. Unless it's a very unique McDonald's. So be looking for the mom and pop shops, the ones that are only in that city. This will give you a general location where they are. You're still struggling to find them out. License plates. In photos, you see off in the corner, it's like a New York State license, if it's Ohio, if it's New Jersey, whatever. Like, just educate yourself a little bit more on what license plates look like. There's a great list on Wikipedia that shows the current up-to-date license plates, as well as you can go in and look at the past ones too. If the picture is of great quality, you may be able to pull out a county number, which some license plates do have. They tell you the actual county of the product, and that's, again, feeding down to almost getting their actual address. Landmarks are probably not going anywhere anytime soon. Usually they're heavily publicized. So if there's like a weird looking pole in New York City, right? That's perfect. I don't actually know the landmark, it's just an example. But it's not going Columbus Circle, okay. Columbus Circle. I'm not from New York City. That landmark's probably not going anywhere anytime soon. And if you see a lot of photos of them at Columbus Circle or other parts of the city, you probably can guess that they're in that general area. And clothing. So look at pictures, like, this isn't a really great representation, but if anybody's wearing like college clothing, like you're wearing a B-size Rochester shirt right now. That's kind of yeah, so this is actually a great example because yeah, but it also says RIT at the bottom. So by looking and observing people's clothing, you can get an idea of what local colleges are around, what high schools are around, and so on. So in addition, Sean's doing this is super cool. In addition to being able to do identification, you can also like Google Health Track and see this photo has been posted elsewhere. Because just because they have it as their Facebook profile picture doesn't mean they don't have it somewhere else. And if you right click on the photo and you just press S, that will go and search it in your Google Images. Now, I was doing the whole click and then click it, but apparently you can do that too, just by pressing S. Sure. Alright. Also, power searching. How many of you do you consider yourself a power searcher? And I don't mean just like your Google who's really good. I mean, you're actually a power searcher. No? Alright, so if you don't know, there are a number of operators that Google offers when you're searching to further narrow down your criteria of what you're looking for, and they are really awesome and really easy to use. So you want to focus on your keywords. If you're trying to find someone's address, you're not going to search for like their name and like, where do they live? No, you're going to try and find a location. So if you pull a location from a social media website, such as Twitter, Facebook, or whatever, you're going to search their name and you're going to search the location. So these two pieces of information together, they have a pretty generic name, like Joseph Smith or Thomas, another Smith, I guess. I don't know, but that's like the most common in the United States, I believe. By putting quotations around particular pieces of information that you're looking for, so if it is like Joseph Smith or something like that, putting quotes around the actual location that they're in will narrow it down specifically to that area, because there's going to be times somewhere in the world that's not that way. The more focus on your keywords, the better. Google search operators, just shown up here, if you know the site that they're on, if it's a public site or public facing, you can't really use Facebook because it's technically part of the dark web. It's behind authentication, you need to log in to use it. But you can specify the site to search. So you can search the person's name, the location, and then the site that you might be able to find it. Another thing thing is file type. You can search specific file type. So maybe their high school posted information about their swimming results or something like that. It might be in a PDF format. It might have gone out as like a newsletter or something, and that's a great way to build, add more information to your profile. And also in-text. This is specifically searching within that web page. So it didn't Google not only indexes the site, but it also indexes what is inside that site. So you can search for a particular phrase or maybe a particular piece of information that's in there that might not be showing up as the URL. You can also start searching by like date range. You can search verbatim, or you can search with these more operators. We've linked the power searching training. Like it is a full training on how to power search Google. If you guys want to take it, I highly recommend it. It's really nice.
Another soft skill is staying in condition yellow. How many of you guys know what the Cooper colors are, or Cooper's colors? So there are these types of, there are colors that are analogous to these types of alert states. And condition yellow is staying in a relaxed yet alert state of mind, and where you're not on autopilot, where you're not oblivious, but you're not tunnel visioning on something. And it's really important because you don't want to tunnel vision on your goal. Let's say you're not studying, you don't want to get so into it that if you don't hear someone else coming. And staying condition yellow means you're always alert, you're paying attention to your scenario, you're paying attention to different visual cues that are happening. Like someone walked into the room and they have a gun. And you're meeting with someone. And so, like, watching some body language. Are they fidgeting? Are their arms crossed a lot? Are they more comfortable? And you want to pay attention to these signs, both when you're, like, even if you're looking at a photo because that's object identification, or if you're in person because that you can potentially talk your way into or out of something.
You can feel the situation out. And lastly, would be cleaning up. Because we didn't just want to tell you about all this information and not try and, you're gonna, after this presentation, I highly recommend Googling yourself, finding out all the different parts of the internet that you're showing up on. If there's old accounts that might be still around, clean those up if you're not using them. Like, the less footprint that you have, the better. So we're gonna start with this opt-out. A lot of these data aggregators have an opt-out feature where they're going to usually ask you for your name, your age, the location, some do, some don't, and the URL that you found this information at. Some may even ask you to provide your state identification just as proof that you are the person requesting this data being taken down. So what's great about these things is that you can get them to take it down. It's just a bit tedious because there's so many of them.
But if you can't opt out, there's always general false information, like lying about your age. I'm sure many of you haven't been on Facebook before you were like 18 or 13, I don't remember what was the rough one. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you want to generate fodder to like mask your actual identity, creating multiple fake accounts, creating, you know, like name yourself Thomas Smith. You want to distribute your interests. You don't, like, maybe you do like football and basketball, but maybe like click like on baseball and curling as well. And you want to mask your age and your location. And you know what? If you're not that creative, just use something like fakenamegenerator.com, springhole.net, or Smith.
Springhole has a really cool, like, it's built for like role-playing games, but it generates real interests that you can add to your profile. So the idea here is just creating a nice distribution around yourself, kind of insulating you from the actual world. So keeping your name the same, but just changing up your picture, who you are, where you live. It's just another masking technique, which leads into physical items. In the event that somebody is trying to steal your physical data, you should be taking precautions to make sure that your sensitive information is properly disposed of. So that means shredding. I don't mean just like spray shredding, I mean like confetti shredding or burning your papers. Like any information that you don't want up there, destroy it. Saltwater baths are very effective against electronics. They'll easily corrode most of the contacts, but if that's not good enough for you, you can always e-cycle your tech. So it'll just go back into the stream of technology. You can destroy hard drives by, well, if they're solid states, throw them in the microwave. If they're spinning disks, destroy them with your a hammer or something like that. But the less physical data that you have lying around, the less that someone can steal. And this is very important for like dumpster diving. So if you're a company putting stuff out in the dumpster, Sean here just really likes going to dumpsters on the weekend, pulling out what he
Confirm.
So this is the privacy handbook. It's by safer.com. It's absolutely free, and this company built this really cool handbook on how to opt out and unlist from several like data brokers and aggregators. And definitely check it out.
So we're not sponsored to talk about them, but their entire business, you can sign up for an account and they will do this automatically. They're kind of like data automation with Google Alerts, and they will automatically opt you out of a lot of these services, but they give you the information on how to actually opt out if you find your information on one of these sites. So,
Yeah, stay safe, kids. Stay safe.
any questions for us? I'll update this resources with the other thing I said. Forgot.
So that website you just found, you're like, hey, tell all these websites to stop clicking my information, and they'll send an email for you or whatever.
Yeah, they'll run through the opt-out procedure for you, but I believe you need to have some data. I'm not sure how much it costs, something to look into. But at the same time, I think it's kind of funny because you can provide information for it to get removed. But the handbook is really great. I mean, that page is super long. I looked through probably like 10 or 15 of them, and there's even some that I haven't heard of, but turns out my data was on there. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Do you feel a bit more frightened that your data is out there and you didn't request it to be?
Always frightened.
Which one of these do you think is the scariest?
Scariest? What do you mean?
Just which one of these when you found out about it made you go, what the fuck, the hardest?
My county record probably. Because like my full name, my legal full name, my address, the automobile that I was driving with the license plate, my driver's license. I also searched like my family, but my mom's side of the family, and I found out some interesting information. Apparently, my aunt got pulled over for speeding. She was going 60 and 45 a couple of years ago.
So was that information because it was like a ticket that you had to put?
Yeah. So I got a ticket for just driving out of a closed road. So it wasn't like I was manslaughtering people. I was a pizza delivery guy at the time, and I thought the house that I was supposed to be delivering at was in this closed section, which there were several houses in the closed section. Apparently not. I tried to explain this to the officer, and mind you, this was my first offense ever. He's like, nope, sir, I gotta give you a ticket today. Yeah, it's kind of shady, but yeah, he's just doing his job. So, just
What would you use to like store the actual data that you guys find? Would you use like Mongo, MySQL, text files?
I would use Excel. I love Excel. Creative Excel. Use pivot tables and all that good stuff.
Because he likes the fintech, that's
Yeah, he likes the finance, so Excel.
I hate shit. I hate Excel. I don't know how to use it. I'm not good at it. I would say like MySQL, Mongo, like a database like that. But also, if you're going to be using Mongo does it for you. Like, you put the information in and it stores it for you. So you can build a profile with them or with that software. But if you're just doing it on your own, I would flow chart your process probably in one of the mind map programs and then store your data actually in a database because that's where you can create these relations. That's how I do it. Any other questions? Yeah?
So as we all know from your document presentation, I have the smallest footprint on the internet of my house. But say I were to go in and clean up all my information, what is the absolute minimum information that could be out there?
That's a tough question because there's things that are out there that you don't authorize to be out there. Like your school, for example, will put information out there about you that maybe you didn't request to be published. The minimum footprint, like this, like your Google profile can technically be enlisted. So it's honestly just clean up white pages, clean up these data aggregators. Having less than a page of reliable information is probably the best advice that I can give. I don't know how to answer that.
I would say that if you were really trying to go away, like trying to hide yourself on the internet, hiding in plain sight is also a way to do that. Instead of minimizing your footprint, maximize it. If you're somehow able to add yourself to every registry of schools in the East Coast, no one knows which school you go to because you're everywhere. So there's always that. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, as Nico said, there's information out there that you don't authorize.
And some of it's public record too. So like that's, unless you get that sealed, which is difficult to do unless you provide a reason to do so, it's going to stay available.
This could also limit background checks, right? Let's say the government. Do you think they can have access to things you hide?
They probably. Background checks are reaching out to, I don't know if it's state level or if it's something above that.
Yeah, it's above, but like we have to go a little bit deeper just to know you more personal.
I mean, they're going to probably use these same tactics. They're going to be searching social media profiles. They'll probably be using these data brokers for information because they did all the hard work for them anyway. As far as like your criminal record goes, you can get that sealed, and that gets sealed at the state level, and that's, you know, it'll show up as sealed, but the record is still there. So really, it's difficult because, for example, I wasn't, and I bet most of us here weren't very aware of how much information we were putting out there before, and now it's a matter of cleaning it up. It's still possible to do, it's just a bit more difficult now. It's more of a reactive than a proactive kind of stance, where say you sign up for another service and it asks you for your personal information, and you don't want to give it to them, you put in false information. So there's no way to tie that to you unless you're like reusing usernames. A lot of these, like Spokio and Bimble and stuff like that, when you do these background checks, they're not actual background checks. They can't be used in like a court of law. They can't be used for credit checks or anything like that. It has to come from, I guess, considered a legitimate data broker, which I haven't been able to find one. So,
I mean, honestly, just false information is probably one of the best things, just because whether or not you try to keep your information private, I'm sure like a bank will keep your information private. That doesn't mean that they can't be breached, and that doesn't mean their data can't be released to the entire world. And so,
yeah.
So I've tried to scrub some posts off of some websites that I may or may not have posted in my past as a younger gentleman who was unaware that I might be getting a job in my future, my teens. And so, is there any laws that say administrators of a website, if requested, have to take down your data? Because some administrators have just told me no, they weren't going to do it. So is there any laws that says that they have to?
Unless it's like defamation, I don't believe so. That's something you have to look at not only at the state level, but the local level as well. So you can find out where that company is located, where they themselves are located, and you can maybe cite some law for requests that would kind of force that into.
they have terms and agreements that you can read.
Yeah, you can look over the terms and agreements and stuff again. That's really shitty though that they would do that. But I don't believe that there's any law right now because it's out there, it's public information. Anything else? No? Thanks, guys.
All right. So on RC3's page and on the event page, there's the Excel today's agenda. On there is the link for the feedback for them for you guys. So if you guys could definitely go fill that out and give them feedback. It's on the event page and on our page. Google link.
Alright, Nick and Joel, are you ready?
Yeah, I know it's up there.
So hi, I'm Nick. You can't see anything. That's neat. Hey. It is gonna do.
Yep. Well, it's on RC3's Facebook page.
Hey.
Okay, hi, this is RC4 episode 2, PowerShell and PowerShell's back.
Quite possibly the corniest title you'll hear all day. So we're going to do today, we're going to go over an introduction to who we are, what this whole thing is, comparison to other things that you may see that you like, and we're going to try to do it now. So, I'm Nick, I'm your RC3's Vice President. I do a lot of acronyms, and I really hate Nick Cage, but I might actually pay for this next movie he's in because it just looks like such a train wreck. And he spells his name wrong. It doesn't have a K in it. I'm like,
What's the movie?
Army of One. He's like he tries to take down Osama bin Laden himself. It looks like a train wreck.
It sounds like a train wreck.
I really want to see it though.
Okay, I'm Joel. I use the RC3 a lot. Some of the targets for RC2. I do a lot of CTS, like a lot of CTS. They call me Stacy, they call me her, they call me Dave, but that's not my name, guys. It's Tweaker, or Spaz, or Joel Stalin, probably that. So I just want to be addicted.
Cool. So we're going to be talking about PowerShell Empire today. So what is it? It is a post-exploitation toolkit / framework / awesomeness. It is purely based off of PowerShell, but it also has a port to a Python implant you can use as well. It's got some crazy good crypto.
Yeah, so it does these things called PowerShell agents, which basically they're like little mini things that runs on computers that you compromise, but it does it without PowerShell. Like you can run it on Mac or Linux, and it's able to deploy stuff that's like Minicats, which is good at extracting credentials from like memory. You can insert keyloggers, and then the way that it communicates is specifically designed to evade network detection, so that you're not just able to look and see, oh yeah, there's obviously something running.
Cool. So when you're deploying any sort of malware to the system, there's this idea of a payload that you deploy, right? Your payload is what you want to get on the system. Sometimes you have a limited amount of space, right? Or you need to fit something in, but it just won't fit, right? Let's say your malware suite is just way too big, right? There's a small thing you may call a stager. It's essentially a downloader script that you put on a machine that says, hey, I know where to get the real malware from, let's go get the real malware. So PowerShell Empire has a bunch of different kinds of stagers that you can use. And the payload is all the same payload, it's the same agent.
So here are the main ones, especially Windows. There is one that's not in this list, but it's specifically for Bash. So I didn't put it in here because we were working with specifically Windows exploitation. So there's launcher. Launcher is just plain old PowerShell.exe, runs a bunch of basic C4 and a window. Launcher bat does stuff with batch. VBS, if anybody remembers VBS, like CD drive, which serves and stuff. It's like middle school. Macros, so it's just a word that way, right? DLLs, .NET framework, injection, stuff like that. Hop PHP basically is like a PHP script that you put on a middleman server. Then you could run all your launchers through that. So it just passes stuff through. Ducky, it's for USBs. It's not like
So you plug in a script. You can make a Ducky script, you go to USB or Ducky, you just plug it into a machine, you got a launcher that just dumps back. I found that hilarious when I first found that out.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
So, pivoting, active pivoting is when you have access to a machine or a network, and you want to access the rest of the network, but you don't want it to look like you're the one doing it. You set up that machine, you compromise to then talk to the rest of the network. And then all the traffic goes through there, and then it comes all back to you. So it's kind of like a pivot point. And PowerShell and Parallel is to do that. Yeah. This is also very useful when, let's say, you reach a node in the external side of the network, and you need to reach something like in the research network that's like 5 hops away, that's like super crazy firewall all the way down. You find like a management node that has access to certain management networks, and you want to access those systems that is managing. You have to route your traffic through because you won't be able to get to the other computers from your initial position.
So looking at this, you might be like, well, I used Metasploit before, is this Metasploit? Kind of, but not really. It's all PowerShell based, which is not, Metasploit uses Ruby. And then, so it just looks like PowerShell is running, so that's totally fine, right? Like, nothing to see here. And you can actually use PowerShell on Fire as data within Metasploit. So that's super meta.
So, we're going to do it live, and we have to sacrifice a goat. So, it's time. Sorry, Bucko.
Where'd it go? Okay. So here, Nick is logging into his chat box.
I have to catch up with password syndrome.
Yeah, so he has Metasploit console.
Okay, so what we're going to do is,
Yeah.
okay. So you can see that this is the base. This is the starting position of Empire that we get, right? So we want to be able to accept a connection, right? So we have to go into listeners, and we go to our listeners, and we list them, and we say we have no current listeners. So if you use the info command, you can see a whole bunch of stuff, right? You can see like the staging key for the crypto it's going to be using, where it's going to be calling back to the host, the name that you want to set it to.
This staging key, typically, you don't want anybody to know that. Or obviously, because this is a demo, it doesn't matter that much. We'll regenerate it if we ever use this again. But if someone has a staging key, they would have the ability to see any traffic that you're communicating with your agents. And so, if you have leaked your staging key and someone else has that, that would mean that they could potentially piggyback any agents that you have connected, and they could use that for malicious purposes if you're not using them for malicious purposes and stuff like that. So make sure that you keep that in a safe place if you have it stored, or just don't let anybody else know what it is.
Cool. So once we get everything set, let's just so you change these parameters on us. Actually, you change these parameters. So let's just change the name to be RC4. And if we do the screen and go, and go. We see we've changed it, and that's awesome, right? Basic stuff. So if we run it, we'll see we start the listener, and we can see that the listener is going to start.
So basically what this is doing is, if you were to run like netstat, you can see on port 8080 on our local IP, there's a Python listener, and it's basically going to listen for connections back. So when you run your stager that's going to download the payload and inject it into memory and run it, it's going to connect back to this listener here so that you'll be able to communicate with your target machines. Okay, so now we have to get onto the machine, right? So we're going to use Stager. And so this is where we kind of get to choose which Stager we want. And this is what we were talking about, DLL, ducky, hot PHP, that kind of stuff. So typically, you're going to end up just using the normal launcher. We're going to use the normal launcher because we're going to use Metasploit framework to use PSXX to inject it into the machine using default credentials, which is a very common vulnerability, to be honest. People just don't realize that there's default accounts built into Windows, and they have default passwords, and we don't change them. So if we say use Stager launcher, it's going to switch into our launcher view, right? So now what we need to tell it is that the listener we want to use is named XYZ. Amateur hour memory. So if we set listener to RC4, which is the name of our listener, now all these values are set. We can see which ones are required. If we type generate, this is our Stager. So this command, if we run this on a target machine, it's going to execute this encrypted payload, and it's going to talk to our listener, and we'll be able to communicate with the machine, and that will allow us to pivot into different processes and that kind of stuff.
Cool. So now we have that. We're going to go do this fancy thing called copying. Some new wave technology here. It blows my mind what happens there. We're just going to jump over to Metasploit. We're just going to use Windows, SMB, PSXX, show optimize. So to be so you're coming in code right here. So good at passwords. Security. So if we run it, we can, here we go. There's the foods. Run create others.
So what he's doing here is he's setting the payload to be a reverse TCP shell. So what Metasploit is going to do here is it's going to use the SMB PSXX exploit. If you don't know PSXX, basically, if you know credentials, Samba runs on every machine, unless you explicitly turn it off. And what you can do is you can connect to machines using a utility known as PSXX, and you can identify using the credentials on the computer, and you can run commands, you can have access to a shell, you can turn on a remote desktop. It's extremely powerful. If you don't want to mess around with it, go in the lab and just start typing PSXX, identify the student, that kind of stuff. It's pretty crazy. Like, if we're in the lab and we want to change the music, we don't want to walk all the way up, we'll just use PSXX, turn on the remote desktop, and change it on the instruction computer. So as you can see here, he's now connected to the machine using PSXX, and he has a reverse shell. So he's wrote shell command, which started CMD basically on his end, and I guess in the Stager, and press enter, it's going to echo it back to him, and in a moment on Empire, it's going to say that an agent is connected. If it works. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So initially, so this is saying basically that our Windows machine has not connected, and we have access to it. We can see that we're running under Galactic system. We can see the machine name, the internal IP, what process and PID we're injected into, the delay. That's one of the things that it uses to avoid network detection, is that it doesn't become a constant connection. It just kind of sends packets every once in a while back to Empire, and then it's like, oh, okay. Like if we run a command, it'll be delayed because it's not got a constant connection, and that makes it harder to see that something's actually running in a computer. Because if you look at network connections, you're not going to see something consistent. It'd be like if you loaded a web page, it's not going to hold a connection forever. So when you type interact, that is basically selecting the agent that we want to use.
And that name that's right here generates a unique name for each agent that connects in. So that's kind of like an awkward name. So let's just change that name to be. I used that before, so we can call it demo. So if we go back to the agents, you can see that it's not called demo. One thing to note about PowerShell Empire, this console here, is that it's kind of based like the Metasploit framework console, in that you can go back, and that there's kind of like this chain of like where you are in execution. So now I'm like back at the room, I can set our type listeners and now I'm in the listeners, and then when I go further into that listener, I'm configuring that listener. So when I have agents, I can list that, it's there, and then I interact with demo, and then I'm now in demo if I were to go back. If I were to go back, I'd be in agents.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a tree. So like when he types agents list, it would be the same as if he typed agents. Now he's inside of like the agents subcommands. Now if he was in agents, he could just type list by itself, and it would be the same as typing agents list. So we're interacting with demos now. Sleep 0 is going to say, because this is a demo, we're not going to go fast. We're just going to say, don't worry about how long you're waiting when you're sending these packets.
Just keep on checking,
Just
checking in,
yeah.
so we can get this that I'm doing.
So type list agents. You can see last seen. So this is a timestamp from when it's last checked in with us. If we set that delay up higher, it would go at a distinct interval of however many seconds we set. And there's what's known as jitter too. So you can make it non-predictable. Like if you had set up a script that was like, okay, check for any connections that are opening every 10 seconds. We could set a jitter that makes it automatically not go every 10 seconds, but it might go every like 8.5 seconds, and then it might go every 11 seconds. So that's, again, kind of that avoidance of detection that it has built in, which is really handy. So now we have shell access, right? But we're only in our local system, and the system is part of a domain. So what do we do next?
So the first thing that we should do is we should set up a pivot listener.
Yes.
Cool. So for that one, it should be use module, and it's lateral movement, and then redirector. Where's it? No, it's not lateral movement. It's what was it? Does that go?
It's really live.
We're doing it live. I used it last night. Management redirector, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Management redirector.
Use close.
Yeah, so close.
Yeah, over time, when you use it, you'll start to, like, same with Metasploit, how, like, he was able to know that it was exploits such Windows, such as be like, you'll start to kind of get these, like, key finger memory, I guess, of, like, what payloads that you're going to commonly use, reverse TCP stuff. In Metasploit, you're going to use, like, you can automatically add a new user as an administrator on a machine with one of these payloads. Like, it's persistence / add user. Yeah.
So we can see that there is there's some things we have to set. So one thing that it says we don't have to set, what we really want to set, is to set a listen that's actually going to connect back to it, right? So we have this foothold, which is demo. We want to access some other part of the network.
So something you guys may have heard before is 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And so that's really, really important. If you are in if you compromise a machine and you're inside, but you only have one way in, one way out, that's bad. Because if they see that and they close it off, now you're out of the system. You just lost your chance. So you need to have at least two methods there. So making another user, opening another listener, having a pivot listener, which is basically a listener on your compromised machine that you can use other machines to connect to, so it looks like you're not connecting out of the network, but rather connecting to other users inside the network. That kind of stuff is going to make sure that you have obtained good persistence within your network, within the network that you're compromising. So
what this does is it set the listener to be an RC4 listener we were at the beginning, right in that moment. So now we can utilize use stage
yeah. So yeah, so
this listeners.
right, so you can see the type hit on this one, and it's got another name now, so this one's called demo, and it's running inside our compromise machine if you look at the host. Okay, so now we have demo and demo running on our compromised Windows machine, and we have RC4 running on our MRI, right? So now we want to make a new user for some ad persistence. So what we can do is we can use module interacts. So basically, we're interacting with the machine. You can use module persistence. It's net user. So this is going to add a net user if the user that compromised has permission to do so. So basically, it sends us information because we've interacted with the demo user. You can change the group if you want, username, password, but that's all fine for now, I think. So we can just. So just check in. Yeah, so every once in a while, we don't really know why this happens. We don't know why this happens, but for some reason it'll like just kind of disconnects, and I think it's due to the fact that Metasploit is trying to catch outputs from invalid like commands, and then it like because of that exception, it just stops working. So we have to reconnect agents that have bars here and be connected. Yeah, it's a little bit funky. Yeah, that could be because we're using Metasploit and Empire at the same time. If you want to look into that at a later time, you probably could. We can just assume that it's probably fine.
Okay, so we're going to go this way, and I'm going to do.
So now we're going to reset a new pivot on this reconnect agent. 4.5. Now, this that's strange. Yeah, so now we have a new listener that's pivot listener 4.5 that's running on my Windows machine. that demo stuff is a bit bug. Even though it says it's connected, I don't think it actually is. It's just this, right? So now we're gonna create an end user. You can see the same information. It's going to use the default. This is a good example of using default credentials. Like if you are exploiting systems that's already been exploited, they use PowerShell, already change the default username and password and set with that user. You could literally just use someone else's exploited user as your exploited user.
Wait, no.
I don't know. Right. There's also a second yeah, so you can see some of the commands that you have this. Okay, let's not working. So we kind of skip it for now, we know that works. So, but that is how it would work. It did work in practice. It worked as good everywhere.
You check this, go.
We tried. He's right there.
It didn't die yet.
Look at the tools. They're like funny face, they're like a little lay. See, that's what you got.
You died for nothing now.
Wasn't enough. Okay, so speaking of that, we're just going to go ahead and use Unicast, which is, as I mentioned earlier, it's really good at reading shit in memory. Like it can pull credentials out of memory. It can like set up stuff like open tickets, all sorts of awesome things with buzzwords. So what we're going to do is use Unicast to get our domain controller admin's login. That's really important because if you understand how networks like user groups are set up, basically you have a domain controller and you have users that are part of that domain. And if you have access to the admin of the domain controller, that means you have access over all users inside your domain. I should turn it off last night. Remember to just turn off Windows Firewall. Because who needs that? Because really. I think it's for security. I think we all into the network once again. Just check. All profiles are off. Did you set that? This yes, I said that last time. This is I did it this was used as a piece of works. Okay. Wow. Wait, is this really DC? No. Okay, yeah. Go to DC. Go to DC. Doing live. Yeah, so we discovered some interesting things also in the process of setting this demo, such as that if you want to use PSX on a fresh machine, it doesn't work unless you have to add a registry value, which is good, you know. I guess that is good, yeah. But so like for instance, if you're trying to blue team Windows box, and you see that people are using PSX. So there's like two main defenses that I would recommend to that. One is change your credentials because they obviously know them to be able to use PSX. The other would be check for this registry key, somewhere, and we can post it later in the Slack. But basically, it tells you to just like trust SMB for users with like just like ignore authentication. So part of the network is gaining access to the machine, waiting until the user logs in, and then scraping the credentials out of them. Okay? So you're using PowerShell Empire, assuming you wanted to work with the demo. You could have done that. But let's just assume magic is a thing, and I waited my long, and I installed the password to domain admin because he ended up logging in.
or I ended up stealing the credentials to an administrator who came out to do some tech support type stuff. So now, with the same exact password for Red Hall, we can create another connection out to it. So by using PowerShell and Empire in our imagination, apparently today, we can do things like steal credentials to gain access to other systems. Now that we have this, we do the same thing with the Word this time. Put in a magic payload in here, and you get to see another thing right there. That was a lot faster. And let's see that. Okay, let's do one more thing. Let's do it.
Yeah. So, if anybody knows how like Windows works, it's kind of fucked up. So like, it uses these things called tokens, and tokens like identify each user as like, I am authorized to do this. However, you can steal someone else's token really easily. So you can be like, oh hello, my name is administrator. Let me do whatever I want, and it lets you do whatever you want. There's a little command within PowerShell called steal tokens, steal underscore token. Basically, type steal underscore token followed by a process ID, and it will just steal the token for the process ID. I know it's really complex interpretation. So if we could get PS to work, which we can, which would be helpful. Basically, it's broken. Yeah, it's broken. It's broken. Something's wrong with firewalls or something within something. It's broken. It's broken. Yeah. But basically, what you'd see is you type PS. Within a couple of seconds, you get back a huge list of all processes, all the users, how long they've been running, their process IDs, and then you could do steal underscore token followed by one of those process IDs, and you get the token for whatever user is running that process. What that would allow you to do is basically you can temporarily, you can set it not to be temporary, but you can temporarily say, I am going to run stuff as this user. So say in your scenario, right, you've accessed your system, the system of a secretary in an office. And so now you have access as a secretary, but a secretary is a low-level employee. They're not going to have access to a whole lot of stuff. However, say the IT is running a administrative monitoring tool on that system. You could steal a token of the higher level process to get higher level access on the system. Now that you have higher level access on the system, say the IT also has a remote desktop, right? Remote desktop has to have a TCP connection to work. You have to be able to establish things. That means that you can use what's called lateral movement, and you can move throughout the network at a level to go to other computers. So say you set up a pivot listener on your secretary's computer, then you move to other computers throughout your network. You set up other pivot listeners throughout your network, the network that you've made your own now, and now you eventually gain access to your IT's computer. Now you have access to the IT computer. The IT computer is obviously a higher level because he has to administrate every computer in the building. Now that you have access to the IT's computer, you can use that to wait until, say, the district system administrator comes in and has to fix a problem that the IT doesn't have access to. Now you can use Mimikatz to grab the credentials of the domain controller admin. Now you have those, you can set up another pivot, you can use elevation. Privilege escalation. You can move up into the domain controller. Now you're inside your domain controller. You have access over all these users, including the IT himself. And now you've basically got control over every computer, every user inside of your network. You've got a lot of different listening points. You have a lot of different computers that you have access to. You can get access to data. You could wait until someone logs into MySQL with an insecure password. You can set up SSL, sniffing, all sorts of stuff. All this from one computer.
So that's about all we have today.
Yeah. So that doesn't really work.
Yeah. What does that become?
How likely is this to be, I guess, noticed on your example of like My guess is probably pretty low, but.
So for all these kind of things, it's a matter of what systems the target has deployed. If they're really good on their stuff about actually looking at their network, like if you tried this against like a big company like Box, they'd flag it right away, right? If you went to some Joe Schmo rural school district in the middle of Arkansas that doesn't really have any tech whatsoever, they're probably not going to notice it, right? There are signatures written for a lot of this stuff, and that's mostly for like things like PSExec. So if you see PSExec traffic going across the network and you know PSExec is not supposed to be happening, it's going to get flagged right away. Actually, when you try and use the management PSExec module here, let's see if it'll actually give us some output. Lateral movement, PSExec, invoke PSExec. Cool. So if we just try and run this right off the bat, it'll show so we'll see right here that it said, like, this module is not OPSEC safe. Like, it's kind of lousy. It's kind of really loud.
Because PSExec runs over Samba, right? It uses Samba, and Samba is defined as, I think it only goes on 2 given ports, 135 and 445, correct. And so, obviously, if the company or organization that you're infiltrating has any sort of network monitoring setup, which they probably will at any level where you've got like probably more than 10 or 15 employees, you're going to have some sort of IT, or even not if your building's going to have an IT that's providing you internet. And so they're going to be monitoring stuff like that could be potentially dangerous to the rest of the network. And so, like, for instance, in my high school, we were required to use the same network filter that the state used. And so originally we were using this shitty one called like X86 or M86, and it was really bad. You could like use OpenVPN, and that's all you needed to bypass the filter. But when our license expired, we used this thing called IPables. IPables is really powerful because it uses this thing called deep packet inspection. So look at every single packet that went through. They would sign SSL, so you had no privacy for that. And they could detect things like Tor traffic. And so, say a company's using IPables, they're going to have filters that are set up to detect stuff like PSExec and TCP shells and that kind of stuff, and they'll automatically just shut it right down if it's even allowed out. So
to answer your question, yeah, in kind of a roundabout way, yes, you can be stealthy with it. There are some options that are not stealthy, and it will warn you sometimes if this is a non-stealthy option.
But you're probably not going to gain entrance through PSExec.
Yeah, it's most likely going to be something through social engineering, getting someone to click a link and run a program. But in this case, the easiest one for us is PSExec mission. What's up, Dan?
Would you like to configure the listener or the reverse shell to work over like UDP?
So
it's like locked by it.
I don't believe they have a UDP module set up because this is kind of the stuff that you need TCP for. You really need to guarantee that your entire payload is getting to the system so that it doesn't encounter error code. You could do it over UDP, it's entirely possible, but the devs did not build that in.
Yeah, so I think Ben's mentioned this before, that a really common like phishing payload is like you send out an email to people in a company and they're like, you've been flagged watching porn, and so you need to click here to yeah. So like people in an office space are often pretty worried about that kind of stuff. They don't want to get in trouble. They don't want it to get out that they could have been watching porn, even if they weren't. If they weren't, they're going to want to say, no, I wasn't doing that. And if they were, they'd be like, oh shit, how did they know? That's gonna get a lot of clicks. So if you send out a phishing email that's like that, you're gonna get tons of people inside the office clicking. You can get remote shells. You can hunt them down with Word documents. People are weakest link. That was, I don't know if you guys, I kind of came late to your social media, but yeah, definitely use people to your advantage.
So, any more questions?
I do. Give me 1 second, I wrote them down. Okay. So if you had to pick a persistence method as like your backup in case your first one got knocked out, what persistence method would that be within PowerShell Empire?
So within PowerShell Empire, we have actually a bunch of those.
I would pick probably service after adding a user, because if they see that user's mad, they can just delete the user. But
I would actually say not add a user, because adding a user is a larger footprint. Probably something along the lines of schedule a task or a network service to call back. If they don't have PowerShell being filtered out by the user, which allows you to run this, you can create a schedule a task for a PowerShell script, which is really just your launcher calling back. And it doesn't really look anything different than someone just, making a task that runs every day at 4 in the morning so that they can do the work.
Does that persist through reboot, I assume?
Yes,
Okay.
schedule a task persistently.
I haven't set up that reboots my computer if I
Any other questions? Yeah.
Is there a way to mass manage, like, if you're attacking multiple boxes with PowerShell? Because the naming, how it names things, kind of foggy, so.
So I don't know any tools yet, and this is kind of like our first scrape into it. So if we do find one, that would probably make a nice talk.
So there are other tools though that can utilize the work that you've done with Empire. So Armitage is one, Call Strike is one. What they'll allow you to do is you can use PowerShell Empire to generate payloads, get stagers, get reverse shells, create persistence, create user accounts. That's probably, I mean, it's kind of shady. Like, you don't really want to create user accounts, but if you're going to use something like Armitage or Call Strike, you're going to have a way that you can get in using Armitage. So if you create a user account with credentials that you know, or you've discovered credentials by Mimikatz and stuff like that, then you can use those to add computers into like your list, and you can use the credentials that you've had to get to connect to them, and then you can manage it from there, which I think it uses best ways. It's kind of bad.
Yeah.
So if you were to mass manage, you'd probably use Metasploit in that case.
Yeah,
Probably.
Empire is really good at
Like single targets, right?
Yeah.
DCs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's just kind of Empire got.
Question there? Like a little more question?
No, all good.
Good? Yeah, I think
That's all we have.
Alright. Event?
Well, it's on RC3's.
For those of you who may have walked into on RC3's Facebook page and the Facebook event page on Facebook, there is the today's agenda, and if you go there, there's a Google link column for you guys to go click on to get feedback on everyone who's presented. So if you do that, that'd be really awesome because it's really great to get feedback from your peers about how you did.
Yeah, I did.
Come on, you can do it. You can do it.
What's going on?
Hey,
free calories.
How to make a
They
plug.
love to give me the VJ adapters.
Yeah, I know how to stop you now.
We know how to find you.
Is this multiple guys?
It works 50% of the time every time.
Oh, yeah, we probably should have said it this way. Don't like.
We're not responsible if you guys do actual occupiers or like tax times.
Yeah, I got it.
Specifically high.
Specifically, I'm standards, you I don't care about anybody else. But, I mean, if you do have to act on standards, just look at paper about it and then run. Run away very fast. You will find.
Okay, something's up.
Did you break it already?
My Mac does not like playing nicely with displays, like it is terrible. Okay, doesn't even know something's connected. Oh, do I have to switch over like VGA or something?
Yeah, I'm just making
Yeah.
but and then VGA.
VGA.
We can.
All right, we're good. All right, go for it.
All right. Hey everybody, glad you guys could come out here. Now, NMAP is a major tool that everyone always uses, so when we're thinking about doing our presentation, we want to ask, what makes NMAP work? And so that's what we're going to do right here today. First, a little bit about me. I'm John Moritz. I'm a first-year CSEC student here. Joined RC3 like a couple weeks ago, so I'm still getting my feet a bit wet. I feel really good to come out with CMD because I feel like I'm an awesome hacker. Whenever I'm not here, I'm sometimes working in the construct and a robotic hand, so I'm trying to keep it a bit varied. And Valve 1 came out yesterday, so I had a good time with that over the pumps. And so let's get started.
Forget about me.
Of course not.
So I'm Brad. I'm tech lead of RC3 or like something like that. I think I don't know. I'm just gonna show up and do things. So I do computer things, believe it or not, being tech lead. I do reverse engineering. Reverse engineering is great. If you guys don't do it, you should do it. Assembly is your friend, not your enemy. Everything you do. Also, I do a lot of like not computer things because I'm a person. So I like Rick and Morty. If you can tell by my awesome picture there that I made in 3 seconds. Put a lot of effort into it. Anyways, let's get started. So our goal for this project is to see how NMAP operates as a networking and analysis tool, see how the packets respond from different kind of hosts, different port states, firewall states, what different scan types are used for. If you've ever run NMAP helps, you can see that there are many scan types. There's Exodus, Fin, you name it, it's there. And you can also make custom scan options too. So one of the things we want to do is determine how firewall state and ports are responded to from different scans such as Exodus, Fin, SIN, etc.
All right, so what we did to figure out exactly how it responds to each type of scan is we had these scans through a one-tron packet so we can easily determine what it was sending and what the response was whenever it first starts off. And then we would compare the results of each NMAP result with the different type of scans to get the best actual answer and develop our own script to interpret said answers into a more correct one because NMAP actually is quite a bit wrong if you do just one try. And you can't really pinpoint exactly what's going on for it. So our parameters, we use SIN, Connect, Exodus, and Fin, because those are probably the most popular ones. And we can set the scans with open, closed, and filtered ports, and we also put the firewall up and the firewall down for each scan of open, closed, and filtered ports. And we tested it on Ubuntu and Windows, not Mac, sorry about that, that's the thing. And that tends to end up being a pretty good result of Connect on one try, but Connect also, as we know, is pretty observable whenever you're looking at your network. So, bonus, and there are certain patterns we can find though to create that script using called and connected. Okay. TCP return corresponding results telling us things such as if the firewall is up or down and close no ports. So, when we were working with a one-track system on a full network, it's easy for that one-track system to be spoken to run, which means that you're less likely to be fouled by using this method, even even though it may not give you the best results, but it can give you enough information to help you get into a system without needing to do a full scan. The flags that we used to help determine with our script was add, reset, syn, and fin, because each one is a different response to a different computer, and they can help us find out exactly what the computer is trying to say. Okay, come on.
So, the syn scan is many of you should be familiar with the TCP three-way handshake, which is where the client sends a syn packet, the server responds with a syn ACK, and then you finally respond with an ACK packet. So the way the syn scan works is you send a syn scan or syn flags to TCP ports from which if they are open. They will send back a reset packet if they are closed, specifying that the port is closed. So that is part of the TCP protocol, and if you do this, it means the port is closed. If you get a syn ACK back, that is completing the TCP three-way handshake, and this will tell you that the port is open and listening for connections. Another time is if there is a firewall running. It will not usually interfere with an open port. However, if you are scanning a closed port, generally the packet will get dropped. So you will get no response back, your connection will time out. And that can give you a handy indication of if they are dropping packets and if there's a firewall in place somewhere in the topology. Another one is the connect scan, which is nice in that it doesn't require roots. This was a big nmap scan back when Unix used to be a multi-system and people didn't have their own personal computers. However, now that's not really an issue. And the connect scan kind of is noisy anymore because connections are logged a lot more often than half-open connections and such. So it's less subtle. It's slower because it has to complete the three-way handshake, and this also goes through the operating system's API, so this is not using nmap's raw packet manipulation utility.
All right. With our ACK scan, the ACK scan helps us determine firewall rules because open and closed port will always return reset if there's no firewall up. However, if the firewall is down, it will return nothing, even if the port is open. So this cannot determine open and closed status of the port necessarily, but it can determine the firewall status. Xmas scan. This will leverage RC793, and any packets not containing syn ACK or reset center closed port will generate a reset. So this was also used to determine the firewall. If the port is open, the packet gets dropped, otherwise it gets reset. And finally, our fin scan. This is identical to our Xmas scan, and the fact that it just explodes a loophole in TCP that allows firewall state to be determined. It'll start with a fin packet, like the name, and if it receives a reset, if the port is closed, and it responds to the closed firewall.
So this is
Exactly. So this page right here was all of our documentation for each different type of scan that we did. We went the 4 scans, 5 parameters, and 2 different systems. Overall, 40 scans was given, giving us pretty good lowering our margin for error as much as possible. And here's the first part of our little function. What it does is we created separate functions that all call the different types of scans. And using SCAPI, we would get the results in flags and then determine with whether or not the firewall was up or firewall was down, depending on if it was Xmas or if the ports were open, if it was a syn. As you can see here, at the top we have syn flags, and if the flag has R and A, consider reset and ACK, so we know that it is closed. However, if it gives us a syn and ACK, we know that it's open. Otherwise, the response is unknown, which would give us a filtered response because we are not able to confirm the answer. And with Xmas, if we get no flags back, meaning that we got no response at all, we know that the firewall is up, else the firewall is down. So overall, what did we find? By looking into how nmap works, we found the system sends packets to the IP, its response, and what nmap translates that into. When we look closer at the packet and conditions that they are sent, we were able to create a more efficient and accurate one-track function than just doing a one-try with nmap alone, since nmap alone isn't going to give you a really definitive answer with a one try, because it requires multiple tries to get what it considers the definitive answer. A single packet system is rather hard, because even we weren't able to get down to a definitive answer that the firewall is up. There are very strange edge cases and behaviors, especially with Xmas. Multiple packets can significantly improve result accuracy, which is probably why I have to set up with that in the first place. There's some further products that we could do with this, such as ICMP with unreachable error codes, which can be hard to translate. Operating system detections. Different operating systems detect in different types of ways, and it'd be interesting to figure out exactly when we find out the OS if you're detected and try to keep it under the radar. And finally, Xmas and hack scans do strange things whenever they're doing a one-try system, because I don't think that's how they're meant to be used, specifically Xmas. But maybe we could use some of those strange things to use them in different ways that aren't expected. Yes. We have a little demo set up here using our script that we made, and it should run the program for a specific host, and it'll do the scans and return exactly what they find.
So I made it so you don't so I'm not going to do that. We can 3.124 up.
Okay.
So for our current configuration right now, I have a Debian host sitting behind a NAT. It's a little hard to see, but first off, I'm going to dump the firewall rules. I can't spell. Awesome. So we have no firewall rules. I'm also going to set up a netcat listener on port 3124. So port 3124 is open, so you can scan open close ports and show the responses. So there's a firewall. So 3125 is closed, so you can see the results there. No firewall, everything is saying it's closed. I'm going to change that to 3124. So now you can see that there are different results. Again, XMSC gives firewall up in this case, which is a little strange. It also, XMSC gives a lot of very strange results. It has a lot of odd edge cases that it appears.
So overall, if you were to use the script, Xmas would kind of like the second confirmation we get. You wouldn't want to use it as like your basis or trigger files or let's try to go firewall this time. Here we go. So as you can see, we can get all sorts of different answers for this. Whenever this, it's probably closed up because Affinity is what we have determined to do less likely of the ones to be answered, and Affinity and no response can connect to being closed. So it is probably a firewall closed. And finally, we have a response that gives all open. So in this case, we would know it's exactly open. And Xmas is getting firewall up, and so back getting firewall down. And this one is the firewall, right? So Xmas got something right, which is really weird when we're trying to check the firewalls up or down, because Xmas can sometimes be right and actually wrong. But the most common knowledge is that Xmas is wrong. In this case, it's right. So we have to fix some of those issues. And that's about the.
Yeah, so that is our presentation. Any questions?
Any questions?
So, the question I had is, for instance, I was always on current connection using NetStat. And I can use taking NMAP, but if I was to say have some malware in the system and maybe strip some files and change some configuration, so it doesn't actually reveal all the current connection with NetStat. But if I was to use NMAP, then I can actually reveal everything that the malware with the hiding connection. Can you think of any ways you can trick NMAP into not displaying the connections? Because this is more on a network level.
Well, so one thing you do is if you have malware, what it sounds like you were talking about malware that is say on the listening side on the computer. So at that point, if it's hiding something in NMAP, assuming it already has the privileges. In which case, you can actually bypass firewall rules by you can set up a customized TCP stack sort of and make your responses. Like for example, using escape, you can say respond to any packet unless it has a data segment of a certain password. And in which case, any scape running against the official closed must you append a data segment with the password on it. So there are ways that you can hide yourself in those. They are just not really commonly seen because normally malware doesn't set up a bind shell and anymore it sets up reverse connections to the CSV server because of netting. Any
Anyone else?
Sounds like a good idea.
Cool. Hope you all enjoyed it.
Alright. Chris, you?
So today's chapter, just click on the link for their presentation and to give them feedback on what they did. So we're going to have Chris do an intro to volatility.
Type it away and join.
Okay, so I'm going to intro on volatility is a tool. Who am I first? My name is Christian Howard. I go by many other names. In the CS department, I go by Yes. That's a long story. I'm a fourth-year computer distribution major. What I like forensics, recently got into the field and trying to do a little bit more. CTS, I like doing as many as I can. Depends on what the CTF is and what I like to do with it. Golf, because I have a life outside. Now, what is memory forensics? Memory forensics is basically the forensic analysis of the computer memory. So, what exactly is in the computer memory when it goes through? Images of RAM is an example, because RAM access memory is where everything goes through. And information that is stored here is small, meaning it's not there very long, and depending on what the size of the RAM is, it can be there a little bit longer, or if something else needs to take up that space, it goes away. Now, what is volatility? The tool that I said at the intro. It's a great tool used for performing this memory forensics. This is all automatically on the Kali links, but you can also download it for free. The link that I have there is basically the main tool that funded it and that own it, and that has all the releases of all the downloads. One reason that they have this up online is because it's open source, and you can find it on GitHub and look through it and you can extend it if you want. Another good reason that this is a pretty good volatility tool, or a good memory forensics tool, is that it's written in Python, which most security users are running Python, and it's pretty easy to use. What does it do? So it looks at the memory dumps of the system that you want to analyze. So it can take different files and stuff on your memory and analyze it, especially random images. It does really well. Some methods, as I've displayed here, look at what the operating system does, what the processes are that are running on the system when you take the capture of memory, and what connections were made within that memory of time. Why is it important to us? Well, it tells us what was connected at the time and what exactly was running at that specific time when the memory or the optimization of RAM was created.
it doesn't have necessary load times or memory, used up memory. For instance, IR or instant response malware focus. So it's primarily for analyzing memory nodes. It doesn't have extra baggage. This is just primarily used for analyzing what you were trying to look at. Coverage of file formats has a bunch of formats, including VM, which is from VMware, as well as VirtualBox portals. But it also looks at crash dumps, raw dumps, some other things that it also does later on. And it's open source. You can go read it, learn it, and even extend it if you can. Basically, anyone can access it. This is compatible format. These are the files that I talked about, hibernation files, so you can look at stuff that was in there during hibernation mode, and VirtualBox and the .v and that, which is for VMware. It covers all, as well as it also covers most of your operating systems. One of the things you can pick which you want to do. It has many different things which I outlined later of what you can do with volatility. And you can look at the information. When you pick the task that you want to do, you can look at all the information and just see what the memory is, what is the memory, what is doing. So I decided to check a little see. You're working for a bank, your boss tells you that you were attacked by Zeus. What is Zeus? Zeus is a Trojan in malware terms. Basically, piggybacks on something and installs itself on your system. It tells you that you have to analyze the memory before you tell them what happened. Operating system. What operating system are you running and why? Why do you need to do this? So you know exactly what you're trying or what processes you want to look at. So I did the lab myself and included these screenshots. What exactly the process I want to be doing? Volatility is the tool, so I add on there volatility, and since it's Python, you have to add Python to it. We see here that it's running Windows XP. Windows XP is bad. Don't run Windows XP. Next, we want to look at the processes. What was running during the time that the memory got made. As we see, there's nothing real too geeky or anything real bad here that we know of. So since there's nothing there, we want to check and see what kind of connections were made during this memory dump. As you can see, there's a remote address with a PID of 856. What does that mean? So we want to go back and see where this PID was coming from the processes. We can see that it's a process called SVC host. Okay, what does that mean? But before we do that, we want to check and see what that IP was. Is there anything weird about it? Well, we go and check it through online, Google search or whatever. We notice that it's blacklisted. That is definitely negative. And then
you find you'll read a little bit of assembly code, but for this one, you don't really need to know what it's doing. You just see that it is assembly code and it is doing something. So the two are in assembly. If you look at the hash of those processes, you find that it is a Trojan who continues to say Trojan. So, and since it's malware, you want to do some type of scan. What are the bold objects? So let's check the objects that it is doing, that it is making do it. And here is one of the mutant scans. Mutant scanning is basically another thing that you can do to see what the objects are that have been created or are in the memory. This kind of displays like a screenshot of all the ones that are written there. It was really low and did not have enough space to do it. But I noticed this Vera 1109. So I decided to check it and see if there's any more like it. And there are. There's two. Looking through online, you find out that Vera is impedance for malware that will shut down your firewall. So after doing that, you want to check is your firewall down. And upon looking through volatility to see like you're predicting your keys and seeing is your firewall down. As firewall is set to 0, you realize yes, your firewall is down. Now you get to tell us. Tell them, hey, look, I found Mark, the reason that is our firewall's down. And the hardware begins to make it. However, to the right here, I have a screenshot of the help function of volatility. These are the main things we can do. We use the -f function mainly for showing and displaying all the stuff that we needed to do. Well, some of the other functions here are you can cache, you can use cache for stuff, and some of the most of them I didn't really use. Just primarily want to see what's going on. Download and practice with your own dumps. So any memory files that you have, any fresh dumps, any raw dumps, you can look through, download them into a file, and try checking out yourself with all of it. See exactly what kind of connections you have going on during that memory time. Also, definitely want to check out any, like, see if it's accurately saying your operating system, because sometimes it says wrong, and especially see if it has the appropriate version of the operating system to look at. That's it.
Alright.
Yes.
So I know you created this lab on your own, but besides CTF challenges, is there any places where we can go and find images and they'll say like find a flag in there? Because I know they have like malware repositories that you can go and practice like reverse engineering skills, but I don't know if there's any specific to license.
I was looking around. I haven't come across any, but I'm pretty sure you can find some that are around. Yes.
So there was a book called The Malware Cookbook, and he ran through a bunch of like memory samples, and it used to be up online, and that's where everyone references is that repository, and that repository got taken down. So you have to do some searching, but there are a lot of memory dumps from that book, so that you can go and do this more. So you have to do a little finagling. It's hard to find, but you can find it. I have some of my blogs, so.
Hold my beer.
What?
Hold my beer.
Hold my beard, XYZ.
Yes.
Is there a link to how far back you go in memory dumps?
The memory dump basically takes a screenshot of that area, and whatever's in that memory dump of that line, it will capture that, but the memory will always change. You consider it as a volatile, so it only stays in there for a certain amount of time, and then it is replaced by something else. Or if it doesn't, or something doesn't have the space for it, it will take over that space.
So if you don't get there in time, it can volatile and won't be able to find it, or
Yes, unless you take multiple memory dumps, which you can do with a certain area. So like if you want to memory dump in one day, and then the next day, and the next day, you have those 3 days. However, if it's like the right size of the RAM is a little smaller, it's not going to keep that data in memory.
so you need to like develop like a
You think of all the times I was in this, it's super easy.
It never is.
Projectors can smell fear.
We're gonna. Okay, this is nice. Cool. So we're going to be giving our presentation today on bug bounties and proper responsible disclosure. So who are we? So I am Jesse, you all probably know me, 5th year computer security major with the BSMS, president of Sparsa, and self-declared meme master. This is my view.
Hi, I'm Josh. So yeah, that's a picture of me actually. Kind of let myself go. I'm a 2nd year C-Sec major. Script kiddie, meme apprentice, mid training.
Okay. Both like working out. Do you guys? What are you doing? Alright, so let's just take it.
Alright, Josh. What is a bug bounty? So basically a bug bounty is a program set up by a company, basically allows you to test their website or application for them. And if you find an exploit or vulnerability, you can get compensation or recognition. So yeah, why would you care about doing these? You can get cash, you can get recognized, secure things, do it for the lulz. As you can see, some high-paying ones, Microsoft actually paid about $100,000 for bug bounty. I think touched on Sparsa, Pornhub did one for $20,000 recently, so it's kind of interesting. Alright, so where to get started on bug bounties? There are plenty of different ways to get started. Some like aggregates of bug bounties are on BugCrowd or HackerOne. You can basically just search through tons of companies that advertise on there. Or some bigger companies do their own through like their website and stuff. So like Facebook, Google, even the Pentagon recently had a bug bounty. So that's pretty cool. It all varies on how you sign up. Some are a lot less strict, like the one that we looked into. But obviously, if you're going to be doing a bug bounty for the Pentagon, gotta do some registration.
Yeah, they required background checks, and I don't think there was any direct prizes other than the pride in serving your country. So, which can't put a price on that, right?
Maybe a job, I don't know.
Maybe a job.
Yeah. Alright, so typical rules for doing bug bounty. You shouldn't be trying to get access or using someone's account if you gain access to it. You shouldn't damage any equipment. Don't break any servers or anything. Don't impact any users. Don't go out of scope. So they will give you a very specific scope to test on. So just stick to that. And don't use any fuzzers, scanners, or automated vulnerability finders because pretty much anybody can do that. So try to get plenty of those.
Yeah, and so a lot of the times the companies will already be using a lot of the scanners against their own stuff. So that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for you specifically to go outside of the normal and poke around where these fuzzers won't exactly be looking at. In addition to that, all of the different aggregating sites usually have a default policy that they'll use. So companies that register with these sites will either opt into creating their own set of rules that they want to follow, or they will use the default policy that is offered by the site. So for instance, like BugCrowd has its own site that has a list of things that you cannot do or cannot like submit on. For instance, any 400 pages or 400 or 500 response pages you can't submit. Anything that is a self-cross-site scripting. So if you can reflect things to yourself, but you can't like send a link to someone to click and then have it reflected to them, well, what are you going to do, hack yourself? Like, they don't consider that vulnerability. And rightfully so, because you don't have any room to work there if you're only attacking yourself.
So some common attack vectors for bug bounties are SQL injection, cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, DDoSing, which you won't really use that for bug bounty most of the times because they don't want you to actually interfere with customers and stuff like that. Session handling, API key security, and parameter validation.
Yeah, so each of these kind of have their own place in web security, and each of them have their own level of damage that they can do. Specifically for what I'm going to be talking about later, the website that we're going to talk about didn't really have much SQL other than user login, so I didn't bother with that because I figured they pretty much had that hammered out as far as security, and people have through their web browsing program have already looked at the login page, so I didn't bother with that. So the main ones were cross-site scripting. When I was looking at packets to the site, they had cross-site request forgery tokens, which mitigates cross-site request forgery. So I didn't bother with that. And what was interesting, and I'll go into more, is the API key security and parameter validation. And web isn't the only thing when considering some of these bug bounties and attack vectors. We're not going to go into each one of them because there's just so many different ones. But for instance, the majority of companies will have usually a mobile application associated with that, and they'll have their website, and occasionally they'll just have a star domain, a wildcard domain, that you can say, hey, anything in this subdomain, just like have at it, try and get our systems, whatever services are running on there. Whereas the company that we looked at, they only specifically wanted one subdomain, their main website, and an FTP service that's running on their main website.
Some tools that we mostly work with Bird. We use Dirtbuster, but there are plenty of common tools that people use for these bug bounties, like SQL Map, SQL Ninja, stuff like that. So before you just jump straight into a bug bounty, you can practice up on your web vulnerability skills. There's like Dan Vulnerable Web App, you can do some testing on that, stuff like that.
Yeah, so the two big ones that we used were definitely Burp Suite, and we just ran Dirtbuster against the main site once. But Burp Suite has a slew of tools. Again, I'm not going to you could dedicate a whole talk to the capabilities of Burp Suite, but I'll kind of pick and choose the ones that I want to talk about as we get to what I was able to do with those tools. So finally, we get into some juicy stuff. So as part of this, I actually wanted to try my hand at actually completing a bug bounty, and there were some criteria that I wanted to look at when actually choosing a company. So the fact that we didn't have, or because of procrastination on both our ends, we didn't have a lot of time to work with, so I wanted to make sure there was one, an easy site, and some criteria I used was that they usually have a low payout structure, they were signed up, or their bug bounty program is relatively new, or their website just generally doesn't look very professional. So using those three criteria, we came up with MinecraftProHosting.com. So it's a Minecraft server hosting site. It has tons of plugins for the actual Minecraft servers. Including one of those plugins is you can actually have a SQL database that manages all of your users, and then from there you can have dedicated permissions for those users. So you can have like a group of administrators, a group of like, I don't know, a group for like red team and a group for blue team, and then have like PvP on your server. So I just thought that was like interesting. I didn't realize like how much like technology actually is going into like running Minecraft servers. So they had surprisingly good web security. for a simple Minecraft hosting site. They did boast that they were like the biggest in the world as far as Minecraft hosting, so I guess that might have something to do with it.
Been around for 5 years, as we found out.
Yeah. So the majority of what they're doing is they work with essential API calls. So their web application will call an API that they have, and it uses a lot of hard-coded like JSON objects. So it's not actually referencing a database at all. So you can't do any like type of like SQL injection. The only thing you can try and do is escape the API, which we'll see was a lot harder than anything. And that's their bug recipe.
Alright, so the first interesting thing we found, just running through a Buster, again, I'm script kiddie, so I'm not. We found a pretty suspicious looking directory, FF, which turned out to be their Freeze Fest, like, sale coming up, I guess. So we got to look at their promo code that isn't really supposed to be released yet, so that was pretty cool. And yeah, just through reviewing the page source, you can see other promo codes and stuff like that that shouldn't really be disclosed to people. So
yeah, so we just go here. Ta-da! That's not that exciting.
yeah,
It's a little
it
interesting.
wasn't publicly announced yet.
Exactly. And so when I was actually in the process of buying one of the servers, just because I had tested everything I could on the main site without actually spending any money, and the lowest server that you could buy was like $2.50. So at one point I was like, fuck it, that's whatever. I'm interested enough. And so I tried using these promo codes, and none of them worked. Sad day.
It's not that bad.
Actually, yeah, I tried messing with the actual like promo code validation API call, and I couldn't get it to accept the promo codes. So this was interesting thing number 2 was hostname collection. So there's an endpoint on their hosting site where it's just called name, and whenever you send a GET request, it sends you back a randomly generated name that will be generated on your server. So there's a little option when you're going through checking all the things that you want. You can say generate me a host name, or you can put a custom host name in. And so I saw this API request, and I'm like, all right, well, let's just see how many like host names we can generate. So I wrote a script that just would like keep querying the site and writing it out to a text file. So after just running for like 10 minutes, I got 500 different names. Now, none of these are like potentially interesting or like by any means a security vulnerability. This was just general curiosity. And so these are like some of the names, and then if we scroll down this bit, there's one of the, yeah, there was this name that I found. I was like, ooh, I don't think that's a name. So apparently I was hitting their site too hard, and then I got the IP banding. So good on them for actually checking for that, even though like the website would be making these requests, I wouldn't necessarily be making these requests. So for the rest of like my testing, I had to funnel everything through my own VPN because I don't know how long the IP lasted for, but yeah, that was interesting. And another thing was skins. So again, not exactly a vulnerability, just another interesting thing. If you go and query that site with the API skin with the parameter of username Phil, again, I tried messing and fuzzing the different parameters to no real avail to get anything interesting. Yeah, I put Phil in there right for you. This is the image that comes up with Phil. So they have an actual Minecraft character, and it will get a base64 encoded string as output when you query this endpoint. And once you decode it, the client will decode it and then wrap it around an actual Minecraft character in the web application so that, hey, you have this like random skin that was generated. I'm guessing that it just pulls from a random list of skins. I don't know what the actual username has to do with that. They could have just done it in the same way that they did name and just like called brand and pick a skin. But when you actually like open it, it's just like there's this deformed skin, so it's fun. It's like, okay, some serious pain. Now here's where we actually are getting a little bit more to the interesting side of getting closer to, instead of just lousy things, actually like security things. So they were doing a domain check. When you buy a server, you have the option to select a subdomain. So they give you a TLD, and from there you can pick a subdomain. So all you're doing is sending a post data or a post request to domain/check, and it returns back whether it's free or not free. And using Burp, I was able to intercept this request because they were doing some client-side validation on your through JavaScript on what subdomain you're putting in. And for instance, when you send Minecraft, obviously the name Minecraft is taken. But if you put .minecraft, it returns that that name is free, which is interesting. So if you put like 3 dots and then Minecraft, while that's not a valid subdomain, it still allows you to bypass the page, and it comes back as true. So although it was bypassable, when you're actually purchasing the server, because I tried to purchase the server with the subdomain like .minecraft, and then after the last request that's sent before it actually being purchased, it sends an updated package of everything you previously selected, and then I took out the period and just put Minecraft in there. So it was able to spin up the server, but there's extra checking done when it's actually creating the server, where I can't interface with that at all. So it just gave me a raw IP address and port, as opposed to actually giving me the Minecraft subdomain, so there was no dice there. And this is the last thing. And so yeah, this is where I actually started to spend money. Like $2.50 was spent. So now that I actually have a server, I have access to their FTP client. Or excuse me, their FTP server that's hosting all of my files for my Minecraft server. So when I connected to it with FileZilla, right off the bat it said non-TLS. So, and everything was done in like plain text, which is interesting because you use the same credentials to log into the website as you use to log into the FTP server. So you can see now we're starting to get somewhere. If you're logging into an FTP server with plain text, then you're gonna have a bad time. So initially there's 2 ways to manage your files for your Minecraft server. One is through their web application, which has some permission checking on it for the files that you're allowed to change, and directly through the FTP server. And when you go directly through the FTP server, you can bypass some of the client-side validation that's done on their web application to make sure you can't write to certain files. So some of these files is your .bash profile, your .bash RC, and your .bash logout. They now are writable, whereas they weren't writable through the web application. So because of this, I'm theorizing that if, let's just say that the service, the box that my Minecraft server is running, or has netcat on it, if I were to write in my bash logout, which executes whenever the shell is exited, to write to my cron job, my user cron job, to spawn a netcat shell, whenever the system, not my server, whenever the system reboots, it will call bash logout, it will write to the cron job, and then when the server boots back up and I say every hour or so, spawn me a new shell, I theoretically could connect back to it. The issue with this is I would have to rely on the whole server to shut down. And the reason that that's an issue is 1, I have no control over that, and 2, there might be 50 other people using the server that I happen to have some space on. So they would need to shut it down only if they're doing like maintenance or something like that. So the odds of that happening is low, but when it does happen, I have the possibility of getting a shell. So that's one vector that I notice. And yeah, so once I have a shell on there, then I can start looking for privilege escalations. I can start looking at other bad file permissions. I can see if I can have the ability to sniff traffic. Now, I have on that box that everyone is logging into for that FTP server with plain text credentials, now I can get people's usernames and passwords to log into their regular server. So you can see how you slowly work your way up from going from nothing to everything. And then the last thing of how I think I might be able to get into their site is through custom Minecraft jar files. So they allow you to upload your own custom Minecraft jar. So if you have your own site that you create, or your own Minecraft server that you created with I don't know, God mode and fly hacks, and if you wanted all of your users to have that, they give you that ability. So I'm not sure how this would work, but if you can upload your own Minecraft jar that also spawns a shell upon being executed, then there you go. All you need to do is restart the service, and you should have a shell. This is where I need your help, or I say help, because I know absolutely nothing about Java. So if this is something that you might be interested in, come talk to me, because I'd like to get a bug bounty, and I feel like this might be a good way to do it.
MSFN can generate jar output.
It can?
Yeah.
So, all right, so I'll play with that then. But,
So you don't even have to say, yeah, you can use MSFM.
oh shit, you're right.
Yeah,
All right,
so you
yeah.
just generate a payload output to jar and try and, it'll probably be calling a separate method though, but you can.
Well, I would have to, at the very least, so they do some, I don't know to what extent, but they do some checking to see if it is actually like Minecraft, in that they like run some like strings on it and look for like various things. So I would need to take a valid Minecraft jar and then append some payload to it.
You can decompile it, use MSFM to do Java output, put that into the main method, and then compile it again.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even think to use MSFN, but.
Do it live.
It's not doing it.
Drop the other days, get root.
Drop the other days. Alright, so.
Yeah, so once you find a bug, you have to formally report it. So the key aspects of professionally reporting on it is specifying the current version of the software that you found the bug on, and a written or video explanation of exactly how you found it, exactly what it does, stuff like that. So yeah, so why the exploit is bad, and possible ideas for mitigation, how to fix it. Yeah, and just be patient because it may take a while for the company to get back to you or whatever. So.
Sure, and then, so if I were to have actually found something, I would have proceeded to, one, email them, and two, ask them for permission to actually talk about it. So even though this is a closed room, and we can turn the stream off, it's the polite thing to do to say, hey, I'd like to talk to some people. It's not going to be streamed, it's going to be closed door to maybe like 40 people who I trust. Like, are you okay with this? And sometimes they'll say no, sometimes they'll say yes, and it's up to you whether you choose to respect that. But that's at your own discretion. So that is everything. So, any questions?
So, what are your thoughts on third-party bug bounty sites, such as Serodium? Are you familiar with them?
No. So what do you mean by third party?
So there are sites that will buy bug bounty. They have bug bounties for software that they do not own. So, for example, Serodium hosted the famous $1 million iOS exploit contest. So they buy from Adobe, Microsoft, Android, etc.
You mean you just sell them on those?
Yeah. So
oh, okay. I would call it third party. Oh, yeah. I would just call it straight up like vulnerability.
So it's just like a zero-day minimum that has
yeah, exploit broker.
Yeah. All right. So what are my thoughts on it?
Yeah.
Seems legit. I don't know. Like, it's not currently being regulated. I don't even know how you go about regulating that because I think that they should be allowed to exist. And apparently so does our government since they're using them and actually purchasing exploits from these people. So at the very least, like there's a market for it. And secondly, yeah. So like I said.
What's the risks of the company letting random people they don't know test bugs on it? Like, has there ever been an issue where a person uses this bug bounty access to actually harm the system even more?
Has there ever been an instance? Probably. That's a risk that they're willing to take. And at that point, that's also why they have a security operations act. So if they're detecting that people are where they shouldn't be, then hopefully they'll be able to take them out. And then at that point, since you're out of scope in what you're doing, then or you violated some of the rules that we had stated previously, then you're liable and you can be prosecuted for that. So you can sue.
So obviously when you're doing your testing, you may get banned, like your IP bans. What would you do to try and limit that from being banned? Is there anything that you can do or figure out what they're doing to implement like IP bans or restrictions, stuff like that?
Yeah, so basically if they're checking it on there, are you just going to have circumvent it or like what they're
Circumvent it or just try not get my IP banned because that keeps happening.
Honestly, like if I just slow down my requests, I probably would have been fine.
Alright.
But it also depends how they're implementing it, right? So if they're saying like hard limit no more than 1,000 requests per 24 hours, right? To the specific API point, then it doesn't matter how slow I make my requests as long as I don't need that card and I don't get that again. But I need that card, then I'm messing up. Or just fucking have a list of proxies to go through and we can have it.
Yeah, so usually most bug bounties don't actually let you use like automated tools whatsoever.
So if you don't use that, it's significantly less likely people get that. Usually once you do everything by hand.
Did you use, what is the grocery that helps you find API points? So is that
Completely. So specifically, what was used was the spider functionality within Grocery, where as you're perusing sites, what a spider is it will click different links, and it will fill out forms based on information that you give it, and just try to get as deep into the site as possible by clicking every single public link. So, and in doing so, it also monitors the traffic that's being sent, right? So when I was going through filling out my my request to buy one of these minecart servers, it was logging all the different API requests that were being made. So once I was able to go back and look at all the traffic that was sent to the site, to and from the site, I could see those API requests being made in a very neat format to replace that. So then from there, I can send it to another tool called the repeater, which allows you to just send requests. So you can modify a request, send it, get a response, modify a request, send it, and respond. So that allows you to fuzz API points very easily.
Do you do DNS enumeration to see if any new hosts have popped up on subdomains or anything like that?
So the reason that would be wrong to do is anything outside of the domains that are in scope is off limits. So there was a few times where I had this crazy idea to do something, but it redirected me to a different billing.mc.com. And I'm like, well, I can't do anything. So there wouldn't really be a point to enumerating all their DNS or querying DNS to see what subdomains they have, because all those are out of scope anyway.
They could do host name. They could do set multiple boxes within a subdomain. I guess would be my thing. Could they?
Oh, so, okay.
Yeah.
So I see what you're saying. Specifically, it said HTTPS in front of it, so that's only the web service. If they listed just the subdomain, then any services on that box itself would be fair game. But since they did HTTPS, it's only web. All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
I never got it. Oh yeah, then Pfizer at 1, so.
So it should be coming back at 1?
He said he had an advisor meeting at 1. He just didn't tell me what time he was coming back, so. Alright. So we'll just take a quick break, with the Citicom, and then spin up it. Yeah, we'll take, I don't know, at 1:30, we guys be ready. And then go to 2. Alright, cool.
So the pizza delivery guys said you'd be here around 1:15, so we're actually going to take a break until the pizza actually arrives. We're going to take a break, actually eat that pizza, and we're going to spin back up at 1:30, and then John and Sean Newman are going to do their talk. They're going to go until 2, and then we're at 2 o'clock, we're going to move into our alumni training sessions where Jamie Geiger and Silas Cutler are going to give their talk. So we're going to take a break for that, so if you have to use the bathroom, go get drinks or anything like that, go for it. The pizza should be here about 1:15, so.
Probably some accident.